Welcome back to SOS Stories of Survivors. I'm your host, Serina Dansker, and today we are going to meet the survivor who walked out of an unhealthy marriage and is squared up in family court and is now shaking the pillars of Connecticut's law so that no one else has to fight alone. This is Lisa Pinney-Keusch, and this is SOS Stories of Survivors. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you, Serina.
I thank you so much for being here. And your story is one that resonates so deeply with me. It's such an important topic. So I just want to dive right in. And let's start by talking about your background, where you grew up, what you did for a living.
Sure, yes. Um, I I was born in New York City and lived in Stamford, Connecticut in my formative years, I call it, from when I was 10 years old through high school. And, I grew up like a lot of us did in the 80s, running around our neighborhoods with friends. I went to college in Philadelphia. And, um, and then I launched into a career in the music and entertainment business in New York
Wow,
City.
that's exciting.
It
Tell me
is.
about that.
Um, when I left, I just went door knocking to get jobs in sales and advertising, like I was told I should do. And I ended up walking in the Tavern on the Green one day, and they needed an event person there. And so I ended up working with the owner, Warner Leroy, who was the son of Mervyn Leroy, who was the director of uh, The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, wow.
So I worked with him for 3 years, and it was very exciting. And through him, I met other people and realized I wanted to do special events, and ended up at Roseland Ballroom in New York City.
Wow, that must have been an amazing time. Now, you're busy, you're working, you're launching your career. Tell me how did you meet your ex?
I actually met him right when I graduated college,
Really?
before I launched got into my career. And we started dating, and we ended up dating on and off for 7 years until we got married. So there were there were a few stretches in there, even for a year at one point.
So you had like this kind of a whirlwind romance, and there were some stretches where you went back and forth. Were there red flags that
Unfortunately, for those of us back then, we didn't have terms like that. We didn't know about red flags. We didn't know about things to look out for. Nobody talked about this. You'd say, he wasn't being very nice, or he didn't call when he said he would. There was no such thing as ghosting, or, there's so much more information today. Uh,
oh gosh, I know. I mean, I think back to relationships that I had, and you know, just you learned by trial and error back then, and sometimes when you're caught up in the moment and you're caught in love, you know, you overlook things too. You don't see sometimes what's right in front of you. So you're in this whirlwind relationship. He pops the question. You say yes. So how does that go down?
Yeah, I mean, we had broken up a few different times, and when we got back together, I was a little bit older. I was 28, 29, and we ended up going to Europe, and he asked me in Paris.
Oh, how romantic.
Yeah, yeah, it was. And with the back and forth, it was really interesting. People today talk about your gut feeling and your instincts. And, I had a lot of those feelings, but I was taken over by this fairy tale.
Yeah.
And the idea, the words that people use today, love bombing,
Hmm.
and coming in and saying, you're so amazing and we're in love. And it seemed so magical. And the
Hmm.
moments that seemed magical were, and the moments that weren't. So I was caught up in that.
And I can see that happening so easily. Just when you are in love, even when you get that feeling in your gut that something is not right, but we push it away or we
Push
don't
it
listen
away.
to it too often. So you had that feeling.
I did.
Yeah, and you just said, "Oh, it's probably just nerves,"
I did.
you know?
Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of things that happened even between being engaged and getting married, and I just pushed it away.
Well, and a lot of us do, and then I sometimes you have to learn by fire, and
Right.
when you figure things out that geez, if only I would have paid attention to that inner voice that tries to steer you. I call it your guardian angel, maybe.
Right. I mean, it's amazing, again, with all the information today and what
Yeah.
I've learned since I walked away 12 years ago.
So yeah, let's
Yeah.
talk about that.
Yeah.
When did you first realize, that this was not the relationship for you?
Mm. Not the relationship that I necessarily thought it was. It was evolving over years. But, I know people in different relationships see things differently. And I call it sort of a spectrum of relationships, because you have people who are in very abusive relationships where there's physical violence. And then you have other parts of, relationships where it's just people are arguing or it's psychological. And
Yes.
so it's really hard to define unless it's obvious.
How long were you married for?
Well, we got married in 1997, so officially 19 years.
Okay.
But it took a few
And then
years.
yeah, so like how long until you said, you know what? Well, did you go to therapy?
Oh,
And
therapy, lots of
lots of
therapy.
therapy.
It was lots of
Was
therapy.
was he willing to go with you to therapy sometimes?
Sometimes, and in my mind, I was never going to get divorced. It just
Okay.
wasn't an option. I grew up in a family of, my mother had gotten divorced from my father, and although it didn't look like this exactly,
Right.
I just was never going to do it. So I tried everything.
And you had children
Had 3 children.
right away, or did you wait?
Yeah, we waited a couple of years or so, and I was involved. I had my career too.
Right.
And so, living in New York City and the career that I had, I was very busy. I was in the entertainment business and music business. So I was very distracted. And you can do that in New York City. So it was easy not to pay attention to a lot of things. And I had the kids and I had family, and then my mother got sick and she passed away.
Oh,
And
sorry.
so there was a lot of other things happening where I didn't have to pay attention so much until we moved to Connecticut.
So what was the catalyst to move to Connecticut?
My mother I'd stopped working after our second child. It was
Okay.
just a lot. My job was a 24/7 job, and
Right.
I'm a 150% person. So when I had my kids, I was doing that 150%,
Right.
and I was doing my job. And I said I need to take a break to focus on being a mom.
Oh, that's beautiful. It's
And
a mom, being a mom's a full-time
it's
job.
a full-time job. And so I did that. And then when my mother got sick a couple of years later or so, uh, we ended up moving out. After 3 kids, we didn't have the money, and we weren't going to put our kids in private school in New York City.
Right.
They were in public school. That was great. But we ended up moving out of the city for more space and for the school system.
Right. So you're in Connecticut. You got a house in the burbs, if you will, and
A little traumatizing for me moving out of New York City. It took a while. It was
but
very
you're
quiet.
from there, so you kind of
Yes.
went back to your roots.
Yeah.
How did your kids? Were they older? Or are they still young?
They were
Adjusting?
10, 7, and 3.
Okay.
So there was a lot of running around and a lot of, a lot to acclimate to. And honestly, when you're sitting in silence,
Mm.
a lot of things come to light.
So that's when you started to realize that maybe this was not what you signed up for.
Yeah, just a lot of things came to light, and things started changing and looking very different over the next few years.
Mm.
Um,
I have to ask you, someone who's been in a relationship where, it's not always roses, and you have gone to therapy. What was your aha moment that said, that made you decide this is enough? Was there a single catalyst or a bunch of small things that set off maybe some silent alarms?
yeah, I mean, there were a few things. I could say I found some text messages that were a little alarming,
Mm.
and I ended up investigating that.
Yeah.
So there were things that came up that crossed lines.
Yeah, it's so crazy because many of our listeners hear the words domestic abuse and they picture bruises. Um, you've said, sometimes the deepest scars are invisible. And I know, having gone through grief, that, a lot of times people wear their scars on the outside, but some of the most emotional and traumatic scars are worn on the inside where people can't see it. And can you just describe what coercive control is in an everyday term so our listeners can kind of understand? Because I know you've done so much research out there, and you don't speak specifically about yourself, but about the women that you've come in contact with and talked to.
Yeah, the information that has come into my world. I am a knowledge is power person, so I've done a lot of research over the last several years. I didn't understand really what my life looked like, what was happening around it, and even in from parts of my childhood, people don't understand coercive control, and what that is um, it's terminology like manipulation and controlling behaviors, and this could be from your boss, this could be from a parent, this could be from a spouse, and it looks different on so many counts, which is what I talked about, the spectrum of behavior and in relationships. And so manipulation and control, certain things like that people don't understand. You say, oh, they're just ignoring me, or we're not communicating well, or they're just telling me what I can and can't do with our money.
Right,
There's
financial.
financial, and so there's financial abuse.
Yeah.
Some relationships where people say they're only allowed a certain amount of money every week, and they start to believe that certain situations are normal.
Yes.
And as you're living through them month after month, year after year, it's confusing because, and I've talked to a lot of different women, you start to believe this is the norm. And people have likened it to putting a frog in water on a slow boil on the stove. And after a while, the frog gets used to this and they slowly just die.
Oh,
And it's not like, people used to put a lobster in a boiling pot of water and they would die instantly. And that seems very traumatic and sudden. And when you're doing it like that, and it's a slow boil,
you don't even realize it's
you
happening.
don't even realize it.
It's crazy because when I was a financial advisor before I became a mental health advocate, and I cannot tell you the amount of women that would come into my office who knew nothing about finances when their husbands would die, especially the older generation. They didn't even know how to write a check. Not that we write checks anymore.
Right.
I mean, everything's automated. But just the simple, financial things, they just left everything to the man, and they had no clue as to whether they had anything or and it was shocking to me how many women, and I made it my business to teach people this is the ABCs of investing. This is what you have to know. You have to understand how to, it's like the business, you are the CEO of you. Right. You have to take care of you. So that
and we grew up in a really unusual time, those of us who grew up in the 70s and 80s, especially because we had the 50s and 60s where this was the norm, where the men took care of everything, the women stayed at home and made dinner, and they didn't really have any knowledge. I mean, think about, and I don't know the exact dates, but I think it was 1974 when women were first allowed to use a credit card.
Yeah.
And this is during the sexual revolution, when people were, peace, love, and traveling around, and women were free spirited, but it wasn't necessarily like that. And it certainly wasn't always like that. And so for those of us growing up in the 80s, this was the norm, that boys and girls, we went out and we could do whatever we wanted. We went to college and we didn't really think about this. Yeah. But I believe that in the background of all of this, the men and the patriarchal mindset, it's a mindset. It's not just men. It could be women too.
Yes.
But it is a mindset that mostly the men had the power over finances, over relationship, over government, over a lot of different things.
That's so true, because growing up, I was in the financial business, and it was mostly a male-dominated business where, the financial advisors were mostly men. And I remember I went into Merrill Lynch and I said, I want to be a financial advisor when I got out of college. And, the manager looks at me last, she goes, you should be an assistant, a secretary, you'll be good at that. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, I'm like, okay, not realizing. And after a couple of years of that, I realized, no, I am smart. I know what I'm doing. I went out and I got my licensing, and I went on my own, and I became an independent financial advisor. And
Yeah.
because you could. We were breaking down walls in the 90s. It took us a while,
Took us a
but
while.
let's talk about that because you know, you've spoken about the family court and the labyrinth that it is to get through. So here you are, you're recognizing there's things are not right. You want to get out of this marriage, but how did the courtroom, how did the family court in Connecticut, how did that work with you? How did that feel compared to the battlefield you were fighting just in your own home as well?
Right.
And you had kids too. So
Yeah.
you're dealing with all of that on top of this.
Right. I mean, it's already traumatic and difficult enough to say that you want to end your marriage and your relationship, knowing what it's going to be like for the children. I mean, I was in therapy. I was trying to get guidance through it and to do the best thing. And I did grow up with my mom and dad divorced, and I had a stepfather. And not that it was always easy, but our in-laws, my grandparents on all sides, we would all go to each other's holidays. And again, it wasn't always easy, but this is the way it was. And my grandmother's home, she would have my cousin's mother, even though they were divorced. So that was the norm to me. I knew this was going to be difficult, but we'll work together and we'll make it okay for the kids. And so as this, I understand the first several months or a year or two can be difficult and challenging.
Yeah.
But I was not prepared for what was to come. So we got attorneys. I backtrack. We had a mediator because I wanted to do this the nice way.
Yes, of course.
And in a way that would be as amicable as possible.
Mhm.
And it was anything but.
Shocking.
Yeah, shocking. We each hired attorneys and we went to court. And I remember going several times over the course of the first year and two saying, well, we've got the truth and we've got the facts. And there is nothing else. And that used to be my mantra.
Mm.
Well, there's nothing else. This is a court of law.
Right.
And here we go. And I'm in my 12th year dealing with truth and facts. And it is dystopian what I've come to realize is happening in the family courts and what I've been through. And as I've opened up my world and gained knowledge into this, what is happening in Connecticut, what is happening in every state, and what is happening around the world is shocking. And I wouldn't have believed it, I suppose, unless I was dealing with it myself.
Okay. Can you give us like some highlights on that? What are you seeing? What's shocking? What is it like when you're in this situation?
Standing in a courtroom and presenting documents and presenting information to someone who is a layman like myself, or at least I was. I'm an honorary attorney at this point.
Right.
But someone who is dealing with this, you see what's laid out in front of you, but what the judges are handing back as orders and how they are processing the information about you and about your children and the situation comes back as twisted narrative and twisted orders. So you're saying, here's what's happened, here are the numbers and the information, and we need to process it so we can get divorced and move along. Right. And let's say the other side is presenting different information. To me, you're thinking this is a judge, and they're there to assess the information with law and order behind them,
right,
and to give an order and a path ahead that makes sense,
right,
that is structured in law, constitutional law and due process, which means it's due process. You are allowed a specific process that is outlined.
Well, there are laws. There's laws that you are entitled to child support. You're in child,
That's right.
I don't know the numbers or anything like that, but I know generally from friends or family that have gone to it, there's alimony that would be paid. There's child support, at least while the kids are young, or maybe there's a college fund that gets set up for the
Right.
children so that they're taken care of for college.
Right.
So you're telling me that it's not that cut and dry.
It's not. I suppose in certain situations it is cut and dry. But when you're dealing with coercive control, and again, that can come from certain parties involved, it can come from attorneys, and then they bring in other parties, therapists, psychological evaluators, guardian ad litems that
my
are
God.
supposed to be helping the children, and sometimes there is CPS, which are government agencies. So in many cases, not just mine, but in many cases, you are now dealing with 4, 5, 6, 7 agencies and people.
And you're paying for this attorney while you're doing all of this.
Well, you're paying for almost all of them.
Are you kidding me?
No. And so
So you don't
they're
get
telling you you're ordered to do these things. And I didn't understand. You're doing what you're being told to do, and you're thinking, okay, we're going to be resolving this soon. And then all of a sudden, and again, I'm not alone in this arena, you are finding you're months and years into this.
Oh my God.
And you're talking tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars that most people don't have, that I didn't have. And it's,
so you're telling me that, like, okay, if I go out and I shoot the neighbor, not that I ever would do that, but would I,
Right.
and I had no money, I would go to court and I would be appointed an attorney.
That's right.
But if I were, and I never would do this either, I'm married 31 years, happily, thank God. But if I were to get divorced from my husband and I found myself in a situation where I needed an attorney, I have to pay for that, even if don't have the money or the wherewithal to handle it. Maybe I'm busy working 3 jobs, supporting
That's
my
right.
baby. I'm just at the mercy of the person I want to get away from.
You're at the mercy of this, what we call a corrupt court system, where
Wow.
they are people who are yielding power, and there is money going around, and again, I'm 12 years into this, and I have a lot of knowledge. I've cultivated an enormous amount, many relationships of experts in this field in Connecticut, in the US, and globally, so that now I understand how a lot of this is happening, but yet I'm sitting here and I still can't make it stop in my very own case. And so it is really hard to describe how it's all happening, although every day there's more information coming out as to how it's taking place.
Okay.
And it really is the family court, because criminal court, civil court, they are bound by different structures and laws, because they're a jury of our peers, which is what we should have.
Right.
In this court, you have one person, one judge, who gets to make decisions. They are not trained, most of them are not trained in domestic abuse. They're not trained in psychology.
What about the children? So let's
Yeah.
back up a little bit. So here you are, you're battling the court system. You're trying to keep your children on a healthy path at school. You're taking them away. Are you still living with your husband because finances or have you pulled out and are now trying to, I mean, I guess it goes both ways, depending on what you can
Yeah.
afford to do.
Well, it doesn't.
know.
It depends on who your judge is, who your attorneys are, and what your basic knowledge is. And in our case, we were ordered to do this thing called bird nesting. And it's in the name of the best interest of the children. So they stay in the family home, and each of you is ordered to go find another place to live during while the other person has their parenting time. So for a year almost, I was staying in hotels. I was staying on family and friends' couches.
Oh my God.
And you could imagine this as a mother of 3 children, them watching me pack up my bag on every other weekend and every other Wednesday, and having to figure out where I was staying and making sure the kids felt okay about this.
How can they? I mean, who makes these rules?
Yeah.
That's insane.
That's part of this, is that there are no rules, and it is very random. And someone like me, I mean, I consider myself a very strong person,
Right.
and I'm resilient, and I've been through a lot in my life. And there are others who cannot deal with this. I mean, I have moms calling me literally every day, sobbing, and they're so forlorn. And you're trying to keep them from doing something drastic because they feel helpless.
And that brings me to, you're going through all of this, and just regular life, you go through ups and downs and highs and lows, and your kids go through things. And so when you're at your lowest, what or who keeps that pilot light of hope burning for you?
There are a lot of different ways um, of dealing with it. Everybody deals with it differently. For me, I had a therapist,
Mm.
and I I just thought I don't have a choice. I need to make this right. I need to do this for me and my kids. And I had little guardian angels, and I started meditating, and you have a couple of people that are I had a couple of good friends and family that were by my side.
Thank God.
Thank God.
You had a support system. I think now or then or all of it, more than ever, you need that support system. You need to have, places to go to talk about these things. Now, I did do an interview with a woman, Dr. Mohana, who talked a little bit about how hard it was when, 30 years ago when she went through a similar situation, and how she's volunteers and tries to help people as a psychologist. But I know that you founded a nonprofit organization called Rock the Walls, and this wasn't just like a personal victory or something. It's a lifeline that you're creating. Can you talk about it? How the idea sparked, and what
Yes.
Yeah, talk about all that.
Yeah, again, I've been dealing with this for 12 years, and it's taken different turns, and again, really dystopian to me, because I think, how is it that I'm dealing with this for so long? And
Yeah.
people have said to me, how are you still in court? Why are you still dealing with the divorce? And I said, I've been divorced since 2016, but this is financial and litigation. And so right before COVID, I was driving around, or it was actually during COVID. I was driving around with my father, who came to visit, who's been just the most incredible support in every way
Mhm.
for us, financially and spiritually and emotionally. I would never have been able to get through this without him.
Oh,
And
love that.
we were driving around together one day, and we were talking about how we can help people and how we can get out of this. And we started talking about what we can do to help and what I can do to help. And I'd say, what would have helped me all of these years?
Yes.
And what would have helped me is finding other support and knowing there were other people out there, which I had now started to find, because I thought I was alone.
Right.
And I said, what if there was a place to go to get all the information that I needed, that I'm just starting to find, Googling for hours and hours? And how could I save this time so that someone could get help right away?
Like-
And we started talking, and we said, a resource hub,
Yes.
and also a space where people could come. And we were driving down near the water in Connecticut, and we saw a big, beautiful house and property. And we said, we would love to have a place like this where any mom with her children could come for respite, for help, for guidance.
Oh my gosh. Or
And-
that stupid nesting thing. They can go spend their
Yes,
weekends and
yes,
Wednesdays there.
exactly. Really.
Yeah.
And a place for kids for support,
Oh.
and which is critical. And a lot of this really does come back to the kids. And as moms especially,
Yeah.
we put so much outside of ourselves for our children,
Right.
and we exhaust. We all know it's a 24-hour a day job.
Mhm.
We don't get weekends off. You don't get nights off when they're sick or when they need help. And people say you're only as happy as your most unhappy child.
Yes.
And so this is what we do, and then we're dealing with all of this on the outside.
So your nonprofit is building. So you're building a one-stop digital portal, so survivors don't have to Google in the dark anymore.
Right.
And I think that is so unbelievably brilliant, and it's so
Thank you.
needed in today's world. And I know that, you're in the process of building it, and during this time you've, assembled court watchers, volunteers. Can you talk about those people who sit in hearings for proceedings and give us a little
Yes.
background on that?
Yeah, I mean, that will be the first program that we start when we start getting funding and people start donating, really.
Yeah.
It was part of a big change in my case last year. After 11 years, I started having people come in, advocates, and people who were interested in the law and what was actually happening in family court, come in and what we call court watch or
Hmm.
observe cases in family court, because it's different in every state, but you are sitting in this courtroom by yourself. And yes, there are transcripts, but there are no videos, and there's nobody there taking there's nobody accounting for what's being said,
Hmm.
what's being done, and how it's being done. So when you have somebody coming and sitting there just being an observer,
Yeah, witness.
witness taking notes, and they see things that are not right and not correct, well, then everybody is on the stand,
Yeah.
including the judges, including the attorneys.
Brilliant.
And we in this world, across the country, have been seeing movement in this. So whether you have one person or you have 10, it's critical, because you can't dispute what I mean, and you can, but you can't dispute what an impartial witness states
Yes.
and the notes they're taking.
Well, and that brings me, I remember when I was in college, I took a law class, and one of the part of the curriculum was you had to go to the local court and you had to sit in on a court case.
Yes.
Now, wouldn't that be brilliant if we get all these college kids going in and seeing what goes on?
I actually had a friend who called me who knew what I was doing, who said her daughter was sitting in last year taking, she was a law student, and they sent her to a family court hearing in
Fabulous.
Maryland. And she observed this. And I said, this needs to be what every court. And so that is a program, and people are doing it. And so somebody came and did that in my case. And what she observed was unbelievable. And she, on her own, went to Connecticut Judiciary, and she filed her own report unbeknownst to me,
Wow.
because she was just doing this on her own.
That's amazing.
And honestly, what I saw in my very own case this past year, it just solidified what I knew needed to be done. And to this point, what she did legally should have been adhered to and should have made movement. And 16 months later, after she sat in that courtroom, it still hasn't made a shift in my case.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. We could have a whole podcast
We could have a whole
just
just
on
on
that.
that.
But that is the truth. And so what Rock the Walls is going to do is bringing what I really am wanting to do, not reinvent any wheel, to
Right.
bring everything under one umbrella. The
Yeah.
brilliant voices, all of the brilliant men and women, mostly women, but there are men and women, the children's voices, people into one space. So you don't have to Google,
Right.
and you don't have to go searching. So if you need a support group in the middle of Minnesota, I want you to be able to go to Rock the Walls and find that.
That's fantastic. Now, you've been lobbying really hard for Jennifer's Law. Now, for those of you that live in a cave like I sometimes do, Jennifer Dulos was a Connecticut mom who was going through a really tough divorce, and her ex-husband was responsible for her death. I think he was. Yeah, and then I think he died before. Maybe he was not.
He killed himself.
Before he was convicted, or after?
Yes.
Yeah, before. But his girlfriend, I think, got convicted. But
Yes.
anyway, so it's called Jennifer's Law,
and it is also based on another Jennifer Magnano, who was murdered in front of her children.
Oh my gosh.
Several years ago. So it is called Jennifer's Law with an S apostrophe, because it's It's for both of them.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes.
And so they're expanding Connecticut's definition of abuse, which is really crucial. Can you tell me a little bit about the bill that you're championing and maybe about that? I think there's a new book that just came out.
Yes, yes. Well, so Jennifer's Law was actually put into place 2 or 3 years ago, and you know, here's the issue. Jennifer's Law talks about coercive control, and when it first came out, people said, attorneys that I know said it has no teeth, and the truth of the matter is there are laws already in place.
Hmm.
For example, perjury is a Class D felony. So you would think, one would think, well, if someone perjures themselves, well, they should have
Consequences.
of being, it's a
Yeah,
it's a felony.
You're breaking the law, yeah.
You're breaking the law. And if I could tell you that most of the most egregious situations that we all deal with is perjury. And I could say this very confidently, have never perjured myself,
Right.
which is why it's easy for me to go and give testimony because
Right.
I'm telling my truth. But when someone goes and they lie on the stand and they perjure themselves in family court, I can tell you that most of the time, on the other side of things, it is ignored. It is ignored just like these laws, perjury, the Constitution, our due process rights. There are amendments, there are statutes, and there are case law. And many of us go in fighting year after year, screaming about these laws, and they are ignored because we don't have a jury of our peers, because nobody really has to listen. And at the end of the day, family court is an administrative court. And so I circle back to these laws. We have Jennifer's Law, and it's about coercive control. And many of us have tried to utilize Jennifer's Law in our cases, and they're dismissed. It's very simply dismissed. There's a law called Caden's Law, which all the states are trying to enact, which we're trying to bring Connecticut. And it's a law after a little girl who was murdered by her abusive parent in Pennsylvania. The judges allowed this child to go and have visitation with her father. He was a documented abuser.
Oh my
He
God.
had been arrested many times, and part of the issue is that this happens way too often, and it's not covered by the media, so most people don't understand. It's just a larger part of all the work that many of us are doing to
Now,
shine a light on this.
I know you said there was a new book that came out, shining a light on Jennifer Dulos
Yes,
by Rich Cohen.
Rich Cohen, and it's called
Murder in the
Murder in the Dollhouse. And he just wrote this book just came out a few weeks ago. And it is a story about Jennifer Dulos, who was murdered a couple of towns over in New Canaan in Connecticut. And it got a lot of national spotlight because she and her husband were Ivy League. It was a bigger case because when
Right.
you shine a light on these bigger names and cases and people who have a lot of money, the media seems to cover that. And of course, this happens every single day. But this book seems to be something he is exposing what is happening
Good.
in Connecticut and very specifically in Stamford Family Court,
Wow.
which is very interesting. And a lot of us will be talking about this in the coming months.
Now I know you're from Connecticut, as I am, but how are the laws different, like maybe in other states, like Arizona?
Well, again, and people tend to really not understand this, and I didn't. It's not about the laws, it's how they're being enforced and enacted. So what's been happening in Arizona, you actually have some good people behind the laws, judiciary, legislation, and they understand, and people have been so forceful about what is going on in family court. They've been having hearings in the last couple of months, and people have been giving testimony, men and women, protective parents, and children have been coming in and giving testimony, and it's all public It's all on social media.
Wow.
And I have been watching this and completely blown away by this testimony and what they're saying very loudly about the family courts in the United States. You can't block this out. You can't turn it off.
Mm.
And it's happening just this past week in Idaho, and it's happening in other states. So I have been trying to contact many different people and administrators in Connecticut in the past few weeks and letting them know, wow, we have an opportunity here in Connecticut to be on the right side of this, to be one of these states. Because if they heard the testimony of a lot of the protective parents, mostly mothers, but protective parents here in our state, and the children who've aged out, who want to come and have their voices heard and give testimony, they have an opportunity to do this.
Jeez, that's amazing.
It's amazing.
Finally. So you are breaking down the walls,
Yep.
you know?
Alongside all of these other incredible voices, really.
Wow. So I'm going to make like a situation here. If you had a magic wand, let's just say, for your Rock the Walls Foundation, and if you could, if paint a picture for us, if a survivor clicks on it at 2 a.m., what are you hoping when this is all done, what she will feel in that instant?
I'm hoping that anyone who is, uncertain about their relationship. I've shifted this a little in the last year that I initially launched Rock the Walls, because initially it was about, victims of abuse. But honestly, not everybody understands that they are dealing with a situation that is abusive.
Right.
Because people, that's a nuanced term. And what I want people is to be able to come to this space when they're feeling uncomfortable about their relationship, uncertain. And so many people are today with dating and dating apps. So I want someone to be able to come here from the beginning to navigate healthy relationships. So when they come to Rock the Walls, they can start out by saying, what is a healthy relationship? What does it look like when your partner does A, B, C, or D? Can I meet up with other people in my area that I can talk to? Can I find a safe space? Can I read a book that makes sense? Who do I follow online? How do I join a group? What if somebody wants to help and also be supportive? What if you're a parent or a sibling or a friend and they want to know how to help somebody going through this? I want everyone to go to this space. And my magic wand is I'd like to be done with my case so I can focus on this.
Yes.
And what when you asked me how this started, my background is in music and entertainment.
Right.
And to me, music has been a part of my life since the day I was born. Like many of us, since our mothers would sing lullabies to us, and from that to the music from our childhood, from our formative years, from when we're out, living, from our sad moments to our most powerful moments. Music is there for most of us. And for me, it's played a huge role. And so it is the universal language. I'm speaking today, but not everybody cares what I have to say, but they will listen to people who are out there who've written about abuse, who've sung about it, from Tina Turner to Christina Aguilera. Right. And there are a lot of voices out there that people listen to. So what I want to do is get those people and these voices on stage.
Yes.
And bring them into one space so that they can tell the story that thousands and thousands of us need them to tell.
Yes.
And so that we can rock the walls and rock the stage and get this information out there.
Yes, because those court systems need to be rattled. They really do.
And people need to understand, because it is your neighbor. You're walking down the street. It is happening in every neighborhood. It is happening in every town. It is happening in every state. It is happening in every country.
Wow.
It is.
That's crazy, crazy.
Yeah.
Have you heard from someone whose life changed because of your advocacy?
um, you know, I can say, because I've done the research right now, I could say my life is changing because of
Oh,
the brilliant, brilliant other women, mostly women, there are some men, who are in this space, who are changing lives everywhere. And I feel really blessed to be part of this circle now. And just in Connecticut, what I'm trying to do right now is bring a lot of these moms who are suffering and struggling so much more than I am right now into one space, and we're actively doing that so that they are not alone.
if Connecticut became the gold standard, um, w- what would be like the blueprint for taking this movement national? What do you think?
You know, um, really, the family court needs to be dismantled and restructured
Mm.
so that when you get to a certain place in a divorce process, it is taken to just a completely other space where there's a jury of your peers, where
Yes.
there's a different system, and that all the states are aligned. You've got the training that is
Yes.
critical, the knowledge of
Right.
what coercive control and what abuse and what manipulation look like, and everybody follows the same gold standard, as you said.
Oh my God, wouldn't that be amazing? Now, I've heard that there might be a film about the situation going on. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, again, with all of these people in our circles,
Yeah.
I connected with an old friend from high school who, a few years ago, who I discovered was dealing with the same situation that I was.
Oh, wow.
And she's just a brilliant, incredible woman who's an inspiration to me because she's been going through this. And we started talking 2 or 3 years ago, and she introduced me to a friend of hers who is a award-winning producer in LA,
Wow.
and we all started to connect. And as she heard our stories and what was happening a couple of years ago, she said, "We've got to do a film." She's a documentary filmmaker,
Wow.
and what has come together in the last year is we are in pre-production for a film called House of Mirrors.
Wow.
And the idea is that when you walk into a court and you think you're walking into a place where there's law and there's justice, and what you're walking into is a house of mirrors where you're bumping into walls and nothing looks or seems as it is. And we have brought some of the top voices
Mhm.
in this world of domestic abuse and coercive control into this space as our partners.
Hmm.
So we are in pre-production. We are presently taking funding and donations, and the minute we get $25,000 to $50,000, our team is going to be here filming in Connecticut.
That's amazing.
It's really
Oh,
exciting.
That's so
And I
exciting.
have to give a special note to our producer is Marisa Palvino, who's incredible and done brilliant films. And our director is Kai Dickens, who anybody who has children with autism and special needs knows her name because she has done an incredible podcast, which has bumped Joe Rogan out of the top spot in recent
Ooh.
months. That's how incredible she is as a director
Wow.
and filmmaker. And she's doing a film with that now. So she is our director.
Wow.
And this is happening. And it's,
That's
it's bringing
incredible.
all of these voices into one space again.
Yes.
That is, that's facilitating all of this.
I think that's amazing. Now, I know you have the foundation, but I know you're working towards an app. So talk to me about
Yeah,
that.
well, again, because of my work and growing up in Connecticut, when I launched last year, I reached a lot of people. And again, somebody I knew from high school reached out and called me and said that saw what I was doing and that he had a prototype for an app in this arena, and it's called Safety Net. And
Wow.
it's built out, and we got on a Zoom, and he showed me, he gave me we did a walkthrough of the app, and I was in tears because he had built this because of a situation and a murder that had taken place in Connecticut. And essentially, it will change the face of what victims of abuse, what it will look like with an app, because they will be able to upload information and photos and text messages and information so that it's a pattern of abuse that will have safe place with other people and other spaces, let's just say. And the most important part about this app is that it will have real-time data that goes out to police stations or FBI or other entities, which we don't have now.
No.
And the most incredible moment we had with this is, and again, we need funding to get this off the ground.
Right.
But I was watching the trailer for the Gabby Petito story on Netflix about 3 months ago. And I was watching the trailer before it came out, and her mother was on saying, we couldn't find, I didn't know where my daughter was. I couldn't find her. And, if only I had known where she was. And I sat there after watching this, and I called Matt, and who developed this, and I was in tears. I said, "Oh my God, could you imagine if Gabby Petito had this app?
Yeah,
her mother would have been able to find her. There would have been records about what had transpired, and this was part of my shift about the term domestic abuse, because I said this app needs to go out to every young person who's dating, and every dating app, because if you have a gut feeling, if you're going out with someone, we've heard of someone going on a date and they get raped or something happens, if you are linked to this app, Safety Net, all of your information is in there, and you can see a pattern, or he pulled my arm and it didn't feel comfortable, he wrote me this terrible message. It's all in there.
Or if you're just going on a date and it's a blind date, and you say, you know what, guys, I'm going on this blind date. I don't know what to expect, because you could get roofied. You don't know. I watched that "What Would You Do" show. And
my God!
See all the time, I know it's actors, but still, I'm like riveted by it
every day.
It does.
So all of this is bringing all of this into one space that brings all of these people, mostly women and children, into one space. And that is the most important thing, because I've said we're fragmented. And when you're dealing with this on your own and you don't know what's happening, you are alone, and no one should feel alone in this space.
No, they can't. Oh my God. I'm going to change the tone a little bit, and we're going to have a little fun.
Okay.
So let's brighten up this, and let's ask, what is your favorite, a sunrise or a sunset?
Sunset, because I'm a night owl.
So that's when your day starts.
Yes. I don't see sunrise very often.
That's funny. What song snaps you back to strength every time?
Oh, it's my song I blast on my car radio with my windows down when I'm headed to court. Titanium.
Oh, that's a great song. I love it. It gets the fire flowing.
Yes.
All right. What about a favorite wall art quote, like hanging in your office? Do you have a favorite quote?
Oh, boy. It's probably Rumi.
Yeah.
There are several different takes on it, but, when you're in the dark, look for the light, look for the crack, because that's where the light comes in.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And I feel that very often. You always look for the light. You always have to have hope.
If you could borrow a superhero power for one day, what would it be?
Well, immediately go to Wonder Woman.
I love that. The truth rope.
The truth rope.
Oh my God.
It would be. No, I actually remember that Wonder Woman could make everybody freeze in time.
Oh.
Yeah, so you could freeze everybody in time except one person that you're talking to, so you could orchestrate the next thing that happens in the room.
That's kind of cool. I love that.
That's it.
And the last thing that made you laugh till your sides hurt, what do you think?
Oh, I'd have to say probably my best friends in the whole world. They're my 3 sisters, really, since high school. And when we get together, which we did a couple of weeks ago, there is nothing that stops the laughter. It takes me back to that time. It's the safest space in the world. And there's nothing that stops us from laughing for several minutes, if not longer.
That's great. So for our listeners who are still trapped,
Yes.
hearing your voice through hidden earbuds, what's step one toward freedom?
Wow. You know, it's like I've said, knowledge is power. So step one is reaching out and connecting with anybody, a support group, an advocate. I know it's hard to find everyone till Rock the Walls is up and running, but we are out there. And so if somebody's listening to this, you can find us online. All of the partners and the people that I'm connected with, from Dr. Christine Cocchiola and Amy Polacco and Dr. Nadine. These are brilliant people, and their communities on their posts and on their websites and pages are incredibly powerful and helpful. And that in each state and that there are people coming together, and you have to have support and community.
How can our audience amplify your mission today? Like, is there a phone call, a donation, a social share? What moves can they help?
Yep, definitely a donation. And very specifically, we're just finishing setting this up right now, but it's on my website for our film, for our app, for Rock the Walls, because we're going to be building out our court watching and our other connecting programs in the coming couple of months. But the film is ready to take donations, and our safety net app is ready, and connecting and sharing.
What is your website? Tell
It's
our
rockthewalls.org.
Oh my gosh. Now finish this sentence. Survival is not the end of my story. It's
the beginning of a new chapter of my life and my children. And I do believe that God brought me here for some reason to be able to help others, with all those out there who are already doing this great work.
Oh my God, I got chills. I really do.
Because there is no other reason. And so for people going through any type of trauma, there has to be you have to just look at it, that there is a reason for it.
I know. And I say it all the time, some of us have our scars on the outside. Some of us wear our scars on the inside. We all, that's why we do this. That's why I have this platform. So we can talk and let people know they're not alone. I mean,
Right.
As you know, I lost my son to suicide 4 years ago, and I try and close every show with one of his poems. And this week I've got one that was one of the first poems he wrote when it was like Mother's Day, and I had been seeing little glimpses of his poems, and he put together this little booklet of all his poems. He stapled it.
Wow.
And he put in the cover of it, he goes, "My 8 Reasons Why. This poem is dedicated to my mom, who is the best mom in the world," by Scott Dansker. "You are my world. You are my life. You are my reason why. You are my love. You are my pride. You are the reason why. You are my thoughts. You are my lies. You are the reason why. You are my queen. You are my lives. You are the reason why. You are my reasons why. And nothing will change my 8 reasons why."
Ugh.
I know. He was 15 when he wrote this stuff, and I still cry today when I read them. I tell you, it's just crazy. But
Wow.
oh my gosh. Okay, well, Lisa Pinney-Keusch reminds us that one brave voice can echo through the legislative courts, and she is so brave and so strong. Please help her support the cause that so many women find themselves going through. I mean, men as well, but it's so important that we shed a light on this, just like we're shedding a light on mental health. This is really so important.
Thank you, Serina.
Oh my God,
Thank
thank
you.
you for joining us today. And, until next Sunday, keep spreading the light, keep shining the love. And if you enjoyed today's show, please like us, share us. If you want to support me and donate, that is always welcome as well. And remember, SOS, Stories of Survivors, is where survival sparks the soul. Thank you so much.
Thank you.